Hello, class, and welcome to week one of Behavior Change Theory, CH 350 at Eastern Oregon University. I wanted to take a moment just to first introduce what theory is to you so that you have an understanding of what we're going to study as part of this class. Really, the purpose of health behavior theory is that you're learning about the theories and how to apply those theories with a client. So, as part of your assignments that you have over the course of the term, you're going to be working with someone who's wanting to change a behavior. And when we think about behavior change, all of us have something that we'd like to be different. It might be that we want to stop smoking, stop drinking or using nicotine products. It might be that we want to set a better routine, be better at time management, exercise more, go to sleep earlier. All of us have something that we're interested in changing about ourselves, and that's what behavior change is. As part of this course, we're learning about the different theories that exist within health behavior change and how to apply those. So, we're going to work really hard on active listening. So, you're going to need to find someone for your assignments as part of this course who you can work with to listen to and help support them through behavior change. Ideally, you want to work with this person in person, although, if you need to set up some sort of virtual meeting with them, that's possible too. But when you're working with somebody in person, we get the chance to practice not only our active listening skills, eye contact, body language, etc. But that's going to help inform and support your learning as someone who's helping support people through health behavior theory. So essentially, this course is about changing behavior. When we think about, again, most everyone, they feel that they have room for improvement. So we're going to learn how we can help people through that change and support them with the tools that they need in order to be successful. This is a great class to take, not only for your own personal health behavior change, but also depending on the profession that you're interested in, it can be very useful when it comes to coaching, teaching, physical therapy, etc., because we're all going to be working with people who either want to learn or change a behavior that they're currently practicing. So there are a couple of things that are really important when it comes to health behavior theory. The first is that we have self-awareness. So what's self-awareness and why is it important? Our self-awareness basically is understanding our own motivations, our own feelings, and our own desires. And it's important for us to understand those things for ourselves so that we can help our clients or other people also understand that, so that we can be effective in what's necessary and when we think about change and how we can best support that. The second thing that's most important is that we need to be really effective communicators. And part of being an effective communicator is listening. So when we think about health behavior change and you think about the things you want to change, you can think about a friend or a family member coming up to you and suggesting that you make that change. Nobody wants to hear that, right? We all know what we want to do different. So when we're thinking about working with clients, we want to be really good at listening to what they want to improve. Um, they know what they need to do in order to change. And we also want to be able to have the tools available to help support them in that. The third important aspect of this class is that we're going to learn some basic counseling skills. So we're learning how to respond when we're working with a client, when they're sharing what they might want to change. We're learning how to ask appropriate questions. And again, thinking about our body language. How can our body language support that we care about them, that we're here to support them, so that they're wanting to share that process with us? And then finally, as part of this course, you're going to gain some knowledge of behavior change theory. So we're going to talk about social cognitive behavior change theory, theory of reasoned action and planned behavior, the health belief model, and how to use these theories and constructs to help support our client in their behavior change, and also think about how we support our own behavior change moving forward. So for those of you who are not yet familiar with theory, I just want to take a moment to kind of go over what a theory is. So a theory is a way to explain why something happens or a way to solve a problem. Health behavior theories are a way to explain why people do or don't do something relative to their health, and they suggest ways the behavior may be changed. So when we think about different reasons that we do things, a theory has been researched and kind of proven to help support why we do or don't do those things. So again, they come from repeated observations of something happening or a problem, plus inductive reasoning, plus qualitative research. So there are two types of research, qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative research focuses more on the experience of the person. Quantitative focuses more on numbers and data. But when we put these things together, we come up with a theory. So again, we've over and over and over again as humans observed that there's this certain experience that people are having when it comes to changing, in specific to behavior change, when it comes to the problem that they're choosing to address. And then that research then comes up, like we put it all together and we come up with this theory. For example, A plus B equals C. So inductive versus deductive reasoning, let's talk about that for a moment. Inductive reasoning starts with an observations and then moves to a conclusion. So an example of inductive reasoning, an observation could be HIV is transmitted through sexual activity. The observation is condoms prevent the transmission of diseases through sexual activity, and the conclusion is condoms prevent or help prevent the transmission of HIV. That would be an example of inductive reasoning. When we're thinking about deductive reasoning, it's kind of the opposite. We start with the conclusion and then we look for observations to support the conclusion. So we'd start with the opposite, condoms prevent or help prevent the transmission of HIV. Then the observation comes next, condoms prevent the transmission of disease through sexual activity, and follow it up with an observation that HIV is transmitted through sexual activity. We'll talk more about why inductive versus deductive reasoning matters in relation to theory later. So types of theories. Theories seek to explain behavior, so why something happens at three different levels of intervention. So the first is interpersonal. Interpersonal is on the personal level or within yourself. Why does behavior happen the way it does within your own person? Interpersonal is why behavior happens within a group of people, so between person to person. So it might be parent-child, friends, personal relationships, etc. And then finally, we have community theories where we think about the levels of intervention when we're talking about a large group of people. So a community can be defined in many different ways. It could be defined in ways that people identify themselves. It could be geographical location. It could be part of a specific organization, etc. Our interpersonal theories, again, explain behavior by looking at internal factors such as your own skills, your knowledge, your attitudes, your beliefs, your motivation, and your past experience. So when we're thinking about our interpersonal behavior change, we're taking from that, what do we already know? What are the skills that we have? What are the attitudes that we already have? What do we already believe? What's our level of motivation in our past experience? We'd apply those theories then to help support behavior change within the own person. Interpersonal theories explain behavior by looking at how others, so these are external factors, influence our behavior. So an example might be others influence our behavior by sharing thoughts and feelings, providing advice, offering opinions. So who are these other people in your life? Are they close friends? Are they teammates? Are they family members? Are they workplace colleagues that you have? What are the thoughts and feelings that they share with you? Do they provide advice? Do they offer opinions? When we're thinking about that kind of behavior change, we're going to use interpersonal theories as more of a construct. And then finally, our community level theories. So they explain behavior by looking at the social systems in which people live. So this can include things like policies, rules and regulations, laws. We can all think to, the COVID pandemic. We can think about the behavior that people exhibited or expressed in relation to wearing masks, choosing vaccination, etc. And those can be influenced by our geography, again, our identity, our religious, our political beliefs, etc. So there are many factors that influence health behavior. Socioeconomic status includes your education, so how much education you've achieved or your community's achieved over the over the course of your life. Are you functioning within people who have a lower education level or higher education level? Those influence things like income and occupation. And we can think about that as education being one of the best predictors of health status. Why? Well, we can look again to, when we look at income and occupation, obviously, if you have an occupation that's really hard physically on the body, really stressful, it's going to have an influence on our health status. If we're able to make enough money to have healthy food on the table, to be able to afford a gym membership, etc. That's going to afford our health or affect our health status. When we think about having an occupation that provides health benefits so that we can see a doctor on a regular basis and manage our health and have access to medical care, that's going to influence our health status. Other factors influencing health behavior included skills. So they're needed in addition to knowledge in order to use what is known. So we can know something, but if we don't have the skills that we need in order to apply that knowledge into making behavior change or health behavior, then it may or may not be effective for us. So, you might be really knowledgeable when it comes to nutrition, but if you don't have the skills to cook a healthy meal or to be able to meal plan, then you may not necessarily have a healthy diet yourself. And then finally, I'm sorry, not finally, but final on this slide, culture significantly influences behavior through accepted practices, values, and beliefs. So we can all think about how our own personal culture influences our health behavior. And the cultural influence can be on the micro or the macro level. So we can think about our culture within our own families or small peer groups, but also the culture of the global culture that we exist in, the national culture that we exist in. And obviously it's going to make it's going to have a huge influence on the things that we eat, the way that we practice mental health, spiritual health, the way that we move forward with, it might be our food practices, how we socialize with other people, etc. Other factors influencing health behavior are beliefs. They're made up of our own perception of what is true and is closely tied to culture. So oftentimes cultures have a set of common beliefs among the people who participate in that culture. Our attitudes are a series of beliefs that influence behavior. So we want to think for a second, like, what are your beliefs and attitudes towards flu vaccination or COVID vaccination? We take our beliefs, we take our culture, and those then form our attitudes, which is how we then form our own kind of opinions. And then values are the things that we hold in high regard. So valued things influence behaviors. If you value the environment, what might be the related behaviors? You might drive a car that has higher fuel economy or walk whenever possible. You might ride a bike. You might recycle more often, etc. It might be that you have values around your own personal health that are ingrained into you. So you see your body kind of as your temple, and you focus hard on being sure that what you're putting into your body is feeding your body, but also that you're exercising and doing the things that we know are healthy in terms of creating long-term health. Other factors influencing health behavior, so religion obviously plays into this. Our values and beliefs are often tied to culture when it comes to religion. But we can think about what behaviors are influenced by our religion. It might be that we have different behaviors around relationships. It might be that we have different behaviors around what we put into our bodies, how we participate with others, how we communicate, etc. And then finally, on this slide at least, but we can think of many other things that have micro kind of influences on our health behavior, is our gender. So our gender definitely influences our health behavior. We can think about the differences in health behaviors of the males and females that we know, and also think about how society helps shape that for us. So it might be that society has certain expectations for males when it comes to health behavior and certain expectations for women. So back to theory for a moment. Theories have three parts. So the first is the concept, right? The idea. The second is the construct, and we're going to learn a lot about that over the course of this term. And then the third are the variables. So let's first talk about concept. Concept is the idea or basis upon which the theory is formed, and it's derived from factors that influence health behavior. So we can think, for example, about self-efficacy theory. So self-efficacy theory has to do with what people believe they can do. And one of the really, really important aspects of this class, maybe one of the top things that I'd like you to take away from it, is that self-efficacy really has a large influence on whether or not we can make change. So the concept with self-efficacy theory is that people will only do what they believe they can do and won't try what they think they can't do. So when we're thinking about behavior change, either within ourselves or with a client, it really starts with the concept that somebody has to believe that that change is possible. Constructs are the ways in which the concept or idea is used in theory. So an example, again, with self-efficacy theory, the concept is people will only try to do what they believe they can do. It's used to explain behavior by looking at 4 factors. These are the constructs that influence the behavior. So mastery experiences means that if somebody is trying to make a change or do something, they've had prior successes. They have something to build on, a foundation. They believe because they've been successful in the past. Vicarious learning means maybe they haven't had prior successes yet, but they're watching others and seeing that others are being successful. Verbal persuasion, so this can be encouragement by others or a health coach, a counselor, etc. And then finally, the physical and emotional state, the reaction to the behavior. So if somebody has a strong negative reaction to the behavior that they're participating in, that can influence how likely they are to believe that they could change it, knowing that it's something that they really feel strongly about. And then finally, parts of a theory, the third part are variables. So they identify the ways in which the concept is measured. So again, going back to that self-efficacy theory, variables would measure the extent to which belief in one's ability influences behavior. So we could think about if somebody has high self-efficacy, so they believe strongly that that they could be successful in changing this behavior. Is there a relation to their actual ability to carry out that behavior change? And then finally, when we're thinking about parts of a theory, we're going to just briefly touch on models. So a model is a mix of concepts from a number of theories used together. So oftentimes researchers will take concepts that have been proven through observation and qualitative research. It might be that they take different ideas and come up with kind of their own or create a specific model. So they'd say, okay, we're looking specifically at this population of people. It might be college students, for example. And we know from this theory that college students under these experiences might have this outcome. And then they would tie all of those together to create a model. So finally, we think about bricks. We use the house model. Bricks are being the concepts. Houses are the theories. And you can see here the bricks are used for the facade, I'm sorry, here. So we take all of those bricks together, and then we build them into either a full house or ways to get to a theory. The first thing that I'm going to have you do for this class is to think about your own emotional intelligence. So I'm going to have you do 2 things. The first is that you are going to watch a TED Talk on the common misconceptions when it comes to behavior change, and then you're going to read the EQ article. So those are your first tasks. Once you complete those, you can go ahead and go to lecture 2.